This is the Star Atlas one-year overview reading for the year of 2024. It's currently March 22nd, 2024, 8:46 p.m. Eastern Time. Guys, it's already into the year 2024. So let's be clear. I'm recording this on March 22nd. So up until March 22nd has already transpired at the time of this recording. Even though the file itself was created on February 18th, we're just getting into it now because we've just gotten like so many orders recently. I mean, we're getting discovered, so obviously it's becoming more and more, and the waiting list is getting longer and longer, so there's more of a delay between when I create the file and when I release the file. But let's make it clear. So the good thing about that is that we can look at the Atlas chart for the beginning of the year, and we can determine if the cards are accurate, and if they're solid. That indicates that the remainder of the reading is very, very likely to be just as solid. And if you're like one of those people who's like, oh, you could just be making it up, guys, go check out the ebook and stop being like paranoid, delusional. Go look at the ebook. The definitions of the cards are there. You give me any reading, I could reinterpret it for you. It's going to be the same interpretation as whatever I recorded years ago for that same reading. Why? Because the cards they mean specific things. I'm the only person that took the time to flip a card by the hour every single day for the S&P 500 for freaking years. I'm the only one. And now I know what they do and what they mean on a stock chart. The file playing here in the corner was created on February 18th, 2024 at 9:08 p.m. Eastern Time. So the overall theme and behavior for Atlas, I really don't like to see the Devil card as the theme card for any type of like big reading like this. It's a pretty strong indication that there's some sort of treachery that takes place, like there's some sort of intentional move for like a fake out, shake out of some kind. At least one major one on like a multi-year scale takes place here in the year of 2024. It's crossed with a big move, like the adjustment card is one of the biggest bullish moves. Often it's like the short squeeze card and it'll come from like oversold territory. You'll have this big move out of it, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it's just like a really big move or even like a gap up of some kind. Behavior around the highest high for the year, and we'll get into the timing of that towards the end of this public version of the reading. But behavior around the highest high for the year, we have a rally that increases with momentum moving forward into the high of the year. And behavior around the low of the year, which again, we'll talk about the timing down to the week in the last portion of this public version. That behavior is a significant decline. The universe card is the biggest decline card in the deck. So we should see a pretty notable move on a one-year chart scale into the low or lows. Now, before we go any further, I just want to make sure that everybody's aware. The whole purpose of the channel is to transmute some of the competitive energy of the stock market into goodwill. We do that by following the rule of karma for the channel. You go to the resources tab of our website, Tarot for Traders, and 5% of the profits from every profitable trade utilizing this information should be donated forward to one of these charities, or pick a charity of your choosing as long as you're paying 5% forward, and then 5% should be sent back to the channel through one of these links. If you're international, you can use Wise or you can use YouTube Tips. And that leaves you at 90%. Make sure to spend that 90% out of love. As long as you follow those rules, you follow the rule of karma for the channel, the universe considers you an angel investor. It's going to send it back to you tenfold for following through. Blessings to all my angel investors. Let's get back into it. If you're new to the channel, just a little explanation. These cards going left to right across the screen, these like pairs of cards here, they each represent about 2 weeks of time throughout the year. The thing is that in some cases, the card's energy will not line up perfectly with 2 weeks of time. So you do have to give, in some cases, the reading's timing plus or minus 2 weeks of wiggle room. However, the sequence of events that we predict, it should remain. So if you do find yourself off a little bit on the timing at one point, it could happen. Just pay attention, make sure you're paying attention to the sequence of events, because the sequence of events is almost always like the most accurate part of the reading. And there'll be plenty of readings where you don't have to give it 2 weeks of wiggle room, just to be clear. All right, so in the early part of January, we have 3 pokes through the same trend line, followed by a sharp drop off of that third poke. There's also a really big move to the upside there. It looks like it probably comes from like oversold territory in this case, and it's a big move that takes us. It's a big move that takes us into. We come out of a high in the early part of January. And then there's this big move back into like a peak there with a sideways fluctuating rally that precedes a decline. A sideways fluctuating rally goes from like the later part of January into the early part of February. And then the decline off of the January high will offer opportunity to open up a long position. It indicates that we're going to see the same price level or a higher one in the not too distant future. And I'll talk about that in more detail in the paid version, along with the trades and what to look for as far as chart behavior. There's a trade opportunity near an important peak and an important trough on a one-year chart scale in the later part of January. And there's a trade opportunity in the midst of a rally there. The rally continues into February, and it looks like we have some sort of breakout in February. We might actually have a higher high in February than we had in January. It'll either be the same high. I think it's probably a higher high than we had in January. I'll talk about it in more detail in the paid version, but we probably break out through the January high here to meet the February high. There's also a notable fake out. This orange correlates to near the February low. It notates a fake out. So probably what'll happen is the chart is gonna make it look like we're going lower. Like maybe we dip just a little bit lower than like some sort of really important support, and it'll make it look like we're going lower. But then there should be this really big move to the upside out of that low. So there'll be sideways rotation and a sharp drop near the February low. And then the later part of February, we have this prominent move higher followed by a full retracement of that move back down. It makes like a triangular shape. In March, we have a rally that kind of like ends somewhere around the second week. We have like this rally that turns over, or I should say a rally that kind of like, it makes like a hump shape on a chart. We have that in the early part of March. There'll be a failed attempt to break through key resistance on a one-year chart scale, followed by a decline through key support out of the March high. So usually we'll break through resistance momentarily, making it look like we're going to continue through, but instead we turn around and we decline. And it's usually after we've just established falsely some sort of support. And then there's another big move to the upside in the later part of March. A key resistance level on a multi-day scale, or excuse me, on a one-year chart scale is highlighted, and we kind of like flatten out around that price level in the later part of March. And the low, which comes not too far after the March high, the March low forms when we sell off from an overbought peak through multiple support levels into the low. looks like probably out of the low, there's another big move. That's that yellow correlation, that abundance card. That big move higher on a 1-year chart scale in the end of March, it either continues into April or we have another one in April after a decline. We have this sideways fluctuating decline in the early part of April that precedes a rally. Price swings near the April low. A really prominent trade opportunity near the April high that we'll talk about in more detail in the paid version. And it looks like it's probably towards the later part of April because we've got that Fool card there as well, which will stand out as a really notable opportunity when we look back at 2024 on a 1-year chart scale. It'll really stand out amongst the other opportunities throughout the year. Looks like there's a peak at the cusp of April, May, and a trough in like the third week of April. We have bearish price swings in the early part of May, an important price level near the May high that we rotate sideways along that establishing support at one point near the May high. And it's an important price level on like at least a 1-year chart scale. Behavior around the April low, I'm advised to be cautious there. That prudence card, there's a trade opportunity there, but usually when you see the prudence card, there's some sort of whipsaw. It's not necessarily intentional like the devil card, but usually there's some sort of like technical chart behavior that fakes you out, or there's like multiple false bottoms, or multiple, in this case it would be bottoms, because it's in a low significator position. But there's a pretty notable trade out of that, and a big move to the upside in the later part of May, pushing the upper end of a range higher and taking us to another important high on a 1-year chart scale there in the early part of July. It looks like the move from late May continues into early July. The decline, it looks like there's a decline in the earlier part of May, maybe coming out of April or right on the cusp of April, May. There's this decline with a fake out near the low, and then this big move that pushes the upper end of a range higher in the later part of May. So before we go any further, let's take a look at January, February, March and see how we're doing thus far with the chart. This will be kind of like our control, just to double verify. I don't do this all the time because I don't usually post a reading that has like part of it done unless it's like a multi-year. But in this case, we can actually check it out as a control. So the year starts right here. So we go from a high into a lowest low thus far for the year here in February, right? Okay, so we have a highest high thus far for the year here in the early part of July. And then we see it within close time proximity to the low. There's a lowest low for the year thus far there in early February. And then we have, interesting, so we've got this rally here with a breakout near the high, right? There's the breakout on a 1-year chart scale. We break out just at the very end of February into a highest high thus far for the years. So that's pretty solid. We go from a low to a high. Rally ends in the early part of, and then there's a failed attempt. There's a failed attempt to break through key resistance here. This is on a multi-year scale, right? Let's say like there, or you could say here, one of the two. Oh, did it perfectly for me. Interesting. It's probably that one. So in any case, so that's that failed attempt to break through key resistance. And the low forms from an overbought decline through multiple support levels that starts off of an overbought crest or peak. So we have this high here in like the second week of March, which is probably right around where this is in the timeline. And what we should see is out of this low in like the third week of March, there should be another big move to key resistance level. And it's probably this right here. It's probably around here. And the reason why I say that is because the Truce card and the Sorrow card have very, very similar energies. Look, this is what I mean by 3 pokes through the same trend line. 1 poke, 2 pokes, 3 pokes, and then a sharp drop off the third poke. That's a Sorrow card, turning into a sideways fluctuating rally out of late January and into February, right? So this is really solid, guys. What I think will probably take place here, matter of fact, I'll talk about what I think will take place because I can actually see with really good clarity when it's just ahead of it, because the chart kind of answers questions and it becomes a lot clearer, the closer we get to the actual present moment. So I'm going to talk about what I see happening here in March, April in the paid version. If you're interested in the paid version, guys, it's a great way to help support the channel. You do so here. You go to our website, tarotfortraders.com, hover over our services, click on SO Meta Posts. Guys, so what you get with the paid version, basically you get the timing of the best trades that we see, and also the type of chart behavior to look for as far as entry and exit into those trades. We look at any cross-reading congruencies that may be apparent there or present there in the reading as well, because those will help to give us an idea where we are in the greater chart kind of scale. We talk about trades from a multi-year standpoint as well, and it's super valuable information, guys. Our 2023 readings, for the most part, we ran roughly a 98% average accuracy, predicting highs and lows to the week. So with that said, these are super, super underpriced. You won't find this information anywhere else. You go to our services, SO Meta Posts, scroll down to 1-year report, click here to order, specify the year you're interested in, and then put the crypto or ticker symbol. If it's crypto, please specify crypto. Add to cart. Really great way to support the channel. Much appreciation to everybody that does that. Again, you won't find this information anywhere else, my friends. With that said, let's get back into it. All right, so we got these multiple failed attempts to break through key resistance in the later part of June, and probably breaks through key resistance or through the previous highs of the year from the bottom of a range all the way to the top of a range. It's actually possible that we go push the upper end of a range higher, and then we have a decline and then a big move from the bottom of the range all the way to the top of a range to a key resistance level here in the later part of June. And then we have around the June high, we have a period of volatility that ends with a fast sudden move higher, taking us into the high. Multiple failed attempts to break through key resistance in the later part of June, and the June low forms when out of a decline. We have a fast sudden move higher that ends that decline. So here in July, we have a decline that offers opportunity to trade. I'll talk about in more detail in the paid version. There's a big move to the upside indicated by that yellow. A cash out opportunity near the July high. That's important. It looks like the July high is probably to the later part of the month, almost like in the last week, and there's a really big move to the downside from that July high into probably a lowest low for the year. We'll talk about that in more detail in the paid version. That takes place in the early part of August. We have a prominent trough in July. It's not a lowest low, but it's a prominent trough. So probably what we do is we have this move to this decline into early July, and then this big move out of it to the upside, out of the July low indicated by a Prince of Swords, which is usually a lot of price change in some volatility. There's a fake out here as well, so you want to be careful. There's a fake out around the July low. Yeah, and a big move on the cusp to the downside on the cusp of July, August into a low in the early part of August, a lowest low thus far most likely. And then there's this big move from the bottom of the range all the way to the top of the range out of that decline of the August low after we do some sideways rotation. Big move to the upside, even in the face of seemingly really negative chart indications. We still move higher, maybe really heavy negative headwinds as well. We still move higher in the later part of August, possibly taking us to another high. I think this is probably another highest high here. It gets a little choppy here, but it looks like there's possibly two highs here. One at the end of August, one at the beginning of September, and there's like a U-shaped dip in the early part of September. So it might even be like that we see that like a double high in September. But there'll be like sideways rotation along key support in early September that rises to nearest key resistance and then fall back down. There's a fake out near the September high as well, so that's important. Probably looks like we're going to break through or something like that, because in the later part of September we successfully turn resistance into support, and then the September low forms when we have sideways rotation establishing support, and then there's a big move higher followed by more sideways rotation establishing support at a higher price level. Trade opportunity there as well near the September low and early September. I'll talk about it in more detail in the paid version. I think this is probably like a bullish fake out that takes place here around the cusp August, September. A bullish probably closer to the September high. It's going to make it look like we're going higher. I think that's probably what's taking place there. And there's a halting of a bullish trend in early October that's marked by a sharp decline through key support. The October low, we probably see two lows for October because we have this prominent move out of the low followed by a full retracement of that move back down. There's a notable reversal on a one-year chart scale that'll stand out in the later part of October, and the October high forms within a period of bumping along resistance sideways, maybe bullish, breaking through, and then finding another resistance and bumping along. Might even do that a few times. It's overall bullish, but for the most part, sideways, bumping along resistance. That is that Valor card trade opportunity there as well. It looks like we probably bump along into a peak in the early part of November where we sell off really notably from another high in November into very likely the same lowest low or just close to the lowest low that we've had for the year back in July, August. We'll probably see there in early December, but there's a cash out opportunity around that November, December, August. Yeah, so it looks like we probably rally into a high here in the early part of November, and then there's a huge decline throughout November. After we attempt to establish support near the high, there's a huge decline throughout November, taking us into another lowest low, which is probably, it's either the same low or it's slightly higher than the low of July, August, most likely. I'll talk about that in more detail in the paid version. There's a cash out opportunity near the November, December low. A big move, it looks like out of that low, either at the end of November or if the decline continues into December, the big move out of that low to a peak, as indicated by the yellow. That's a near overbought peak that we then sell off from in early December through multiple supports, and the December low forms when we have a decline through multiple supports. The December high forms when we decline to and through support to meet another support, and then we bounce along that sideways for a bit before breaking down through more supports. There's a brief peak that's easily missed, followed by a decline through multiple support levels, starting from that peak and continuing into the end of December. As far as the timing of the highest high and the lowest low for the year of 2024, it looks like we have a breakout to a highest high for the year here. I talk about the price level in the paid version, but here in July, and then we might come back to it again here in August, September. As far as lowest lows, we have a lowest low here in February, and it's most likely the same price level here in July, August. I'll talk about price level again in more detail in the paid version, but it's most likely the lowest lows there in the early part of August. And then a sneak preview for 2025, we have at some point in 2025, there's a rally along a diagonal trend line. This will be important and it'll stand out in some way on a one-year chart scale for 2025. There's a rally along a diagonal trend line on a multi-day scale, ends with a fast move higher and then a breakdown through that same diagonal trend line with increasing volatility on the way down. We don't actually have a multi-year reading conducted for Atlas coin just yet, but we'll do an update once that comes out. And that's Atlas for 2024, my friends. Let me know what you think by hitting that like button. As always, make sure to follow that rule of karma. You know where to go, you know what to do. Blessings to all my angel investors. I'll see all my angel investors on the free Discord channel just for angel investors. I'll see the rest of you on the next one. Later.